A lot to parse today, Carol Massar. At one point, we weren't even sure we were going to talk to you today. It was like, would she, won't she? But I guess you decided to do the simulcast anyway here. Stocks at session lows, yield spiking, Powell speaking, RFK now going to be your new Health and Human Services Secretary.
Got to get it confirmed, doesn't he?
Yeah, a lot going on, Carol. Take your pick.
Listen, what I think is really important is what Jay Powell says. If the data lets us go slower, that's going to be what we do. And you have seen that reflect in the U.S. Treasury trade. Take a look at that two-year note right now with a yield of 4.34. You've seen kind of a flattening, or out of the belly of the curve here. The expectations in terms of what the Fed does come December, next month. Again, traders paring that back. Mind you, the data keeps kind of kicking us around on all of this.
Look, you guys are focused.
Jay Powell.
You guys rightly focused certainly on what we heard from Jay Powell. Rightly focused on the bond market. But Romaine, as you mentioned, Politico reporting earlier. Powell was speaking that RFK, Trump has offered RFK HHS secretary position. As a result, we're seeing shares of vaccine makers take a tumble right now. Shares of Moderna down 5.6%. Shares of Pfizer down 2.7%. We'll see what kind of effect this has if he does get confirmed.
Novavax down 7%. And we should point out that the selling really intensifying in those names. Still speculative. Remember, these are reports from Politico and CNN. A formal nomination has not been made. And to a point Scarlet made just a second ago on the TV broadcast, it still has to get through confirmation. A lot of hard questions.
Not just him. Yeah, a bunch of people.
Everybody,
as well.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we should mention as well that the economic data, if the Fed is going to look at the data as its basis for everything, the data has been coming in better than expected, according to the Citi Economic Surprise Index.
Cinemark ringing the closing bell on the NYSE today. Not quite a day to be clapping, but they're required to do so anyway. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 200 points, or 0.5%. The S&P and the NASDAQ each down about 0.6% on the day. But the real laggards were in that more industrial and small cap space, if you will. S&P 400 mid caps down about 1%, and the Russell 2000 down 1.4%.
All right, Romaine, and we've got a majority of names in the S&P 500 lower today. 363 names losing ground here, and we also saw that selling steepen on those comments by Jay Powell, and the reaction certainly in the Treasury trade. 140 to the upside, and we've got zero unchanged here, Scarlet.
All right, let's take a look at the sector performances. It's really interesting here today because you've got two sectors that finished barely higher. Energy up by 0.1%, and tech is basically little change at this point. And oil prices moving up slightly, so maybe that's helping support the energy stocks. But the big decliners, industrials losing 1.7%. Healthcare, as we mentioned, with the speculated nomination of RFK Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary, and consumer discretionary losing 1.5% as well.
Yeah, a fair amount of red in that screen there. All right, let's get to some of the individual gainers. Kind of easy for me. I kind of feel like specific stories keeping these stocks higher in the trade. Tapestry.
Oh, you got Tapestry on there.
I did, just for you. Up 13%. You're welcome. Number one gainer in the S&P 500. Capri Holdings and Tapestry, as you know, scrapping their $8.5 billion plan to merge after court order froze the proposed combination of the companies. That has to do with antitrust regulators' objections. I think we have some breaking news.
Yeah, let's get right to it. Applied Materials are crossing the wire. We should point out that the shares had actually risen about 2% in the cash session, now down here in the after-hours trade as adjusted EPS coming in at about $2.32 a share for that fourth quarter. That's actually a beat. The street was looking for $2.19, and sales also coming in slightly above estimates, $7.05 billion. We'll round that up to $7.1. Street was basically looking for about $7 billion even here. And we should also point that as far as the semiconductor systems net sales, and this is important because this is the one that more encompasses the potential for that AI bump, relatively in line with estimates, $5.18 billion. Street was looking for $5.13.
All right, and let's give you also the adjusted gross margin, the profitability here, 47.5%. It was about 47.3% last year. This was just slightly above what analysts were anticipating. As for the outlook for this quarter, fiscal first quarter, it sees net sales of anywhere from $6.75 billion to $7.55 billion. Analysts were looking for $7.25 billion overall.
All right, AMAT shares, keep in mind, up 15% here in 2024. Right now, we're looking at about a 2.5% decline here in the aftermarket. All right, back to some of the individual gainers. Disney, another one that was among the top gainers in the S&P 500, number 3 to be exact. Intraday up the most in nearly 4 years. Walt Disney, some of the numbers, posted fiscal fourth quarter sales and profit that beat Wall Street estimates. Forecast earnings growth for the next 3 years, which is not something that this company is known for doing. It hasn't made long-range profit projections. A lot of talk about what was going on.
I love
in terms
that,
of
by
streaming.
the way, too, particularly given that the guy making that forecast won't actually be around.
Maybe.
To see whether, or at least technically he's not.
Maybe.
Actually, you're talking about Bob Iger?
Yes, I'm talking about Bob
You know,
Iger.
we asked Geetha, we kind of kidded with her, and we're like, you know, might he stick around? And she's like, maybe. She expects him to go, but she seems to think he's getting certainly the company on track. You're right. A good point. Anyway, third gainer here on this Thursday. Wynn Resorts, guys, just finishing off its highs, up more than 9%. This is after billionaire Tilman Fertitta reported a 9.9% stake in the company in a 13D filing. So certainly some interest in that one on this Thursday.
Okay, I want to go to some decliners. And we had shares of U.S. automakers falling after Reuters reported that President-elect Donald Trump plans to eliminate that $7,500 consumer tax credit for EV purchases. Shares of Rivian fell by 14.3%. According to Reuters, Trump's transition team had been discussing ending the subsidy as part of a broader tax reform effort. They cited unidentified sources with knowledge of the matter. Representative Tesla support ending the credit, according to the report. Once again, shares of Rivian falling by 14.3%. SMCI Supermicrocomputer down for another day, this time 11.4% to the downside. After the troubled server maker delayed yet another filing as it continues to search for a new accounting firm. Remember, it was just last month that EY resigned. That was the company's auditor. They cited questions about its client's commitment to integrity and ethics. Now there are concerns that it's going to get delisted by NASDAQ and actually booted from the S&P 500 just after being added earlier this year. And Hims & Hers Health, the telemedicine provider, shares fell the most on record today, down 24%, after Amazon said it's launching a competing telehealth platform offering for its Prime members. This would be from One Medical, which Amazon bought in recent years. It offers a clinical visit, treatment plan, and free meds for a range of common health, beauty, and lifestyle concerns.
Let's take a look at what happened in the yield space. A lot of activity on the short end of the curve, selling to be sure, with your 2-year yield. Looks like it's going to close out the day up by about 6.5 basis points. At one point, it was up more than 8 basis points. Now back to its highest level since late January. You saw a similar move on your 5-year yield as well. But we should talk when we go out to the longer end of the curve, that 10, that 20, and 30-year yield. You saw the yields drop there, and that created a bit of a flattening of the curve. But a lot of this activity, of course, came after we got those prepared remarks out of Jay Powell at about 2 p.m. local time out of Dallas. It seemed to suggest, at least in his public comments, the potential for a bit of a slow walk when it comes to any additional rate cuts.
For now, right? But as Mike McKee reminds us, we've got another inflation print, we've got a labor market, we've got a bunch of data before we get to that December meeting.
We've got more than a month before the next meeting. That's a lot of data points.
Nothing can happen. Nothing can happen. Hey, listen, this is something that's happening that we think is just kind of wild. The Onion, along with families of Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting victims, are on tap to buy the right-wing provocateur Alex Jones InfoWars website, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, this group was chosen as the successful bid for the InfoWars intellectual property. This is according to a court filing. We don't know the price, but a liquidator has been tasked with liquidating Jones' estate in bankruptcy to help him pay down approximately $1.5 billion in defamation judgments related to statements that he made, calling the 2012 Sandy Hook shooting a hoax.
We should point out the advocacy group Everytown for Gun Safety will be the exclusive advertiser for the launch of the site. Everytown for Gun Safety, as we know, is backed by Michael R. Bloomberg, of course, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies.
All right, wonderful. We're going to turn to something just a little bit lighter here, of course, and it involves Netflix. And, of course, Scarlett, I know you were really into this show when it came out, when it debuted, Squid Game. It's coming back next month.
It's coming back one day after Christmas, when Netflix shows its first pro football games. Remember when Netflix said it wouldn't do live sports? Well, it's doing that, and then it's going to hold on to that audience by launching Squid Games, the second season, which, if you watched the first season, I didn't necessarily think there was another second season in there.
Thank you, Scarlett. How do you do another season? I don't want to give away all the details.
Don't give
of
it
the
away.
first
I haven't
season.
seen it yet, Tim.
Well, let's
We're
just
so
say
behind,
there.
Romaine.
Let's say there are some twists and turns.
I haven't watched it either.
Thank you, Carol.
It's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Welcome.
It's really
Some
good.
of us have taste, right, Romaine?
No, this is really good. You guys should watch this.
I am curious. It's funny. There's a great profile of the creator of this, and he kind of talked about all the pressure that was on him when he did the first one. And you see this, like he claimed he lost like 6 or 7 teeth, I guess, from all the stress.
It was very stressful, right? He ground his teeth, I think.
I'm like, what?
So, yeah.
I was like, dude, like,
Hey,
Go on
dude.
vacation.
Well, maybe
no,
like
no one
now.
needs
Some of the
Squid
Squid
Game.
Game.
He wrote 2 seasons, though. After Netflix talked to him, he wrote 2 seasons,
Yeah, so they
and now
got
he's done.
2025, and then he's got another one for 2026, so
Yep.
or at the end of the 2024, sorry, and then the 2025. There you go.
It's
Carol
okay.
Massar. We'll catch up on it together. Carol and I are going to have a viewing party.
Popcorn.
Tim, you're not invited.
It's
Yeah,
fine.
it's the two
I've
of us.
seen it, okay?
Oh,
I don't want
sorry.
to come.
They're so cool, aren't they? All right, that's a wrap. Our cross-platform coverage, guys. Radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow for the closing bell.